Hey y'all, I'm Paula Deen. Come on into my kitchen today. I'm so excited. Today we're gonna bake a couple of cakes using one of my old family recipes. Now I was digging through my keepsake box when I came across this recipe for butter muffins from my great-grandmother Josephina Katrina Selena Elwood. But the problem is, Grandma Elwood was a real penny pincher, and she would never make more than she could eat in one sitting. But I want to make butter cakes for my grandsons, Bobby Jr. and Jamie Jr. Come on in here, boys, and say hi to the camera. Ain't they cute? They're from Arkansas. Boys, are y'all ready to see Grandma whip you up some cakes with high saturated fat and butter content? Get on out of here and I'll call y'all in when I'm ready. Let's get started. In order to use Mama Elwood's recipe to make 2 cakes, I'm going to have to use some old school geometry. So sit back and take some notes, y'all. Today I'm going to be making a round cake and a rectangular sheet cake. But remember, I only have a recipe for 1 cup of batter and icing. And anyone smarter than a 5th grader knows I'm going to need more than 1 cup. So here's how we're going to solve our little dilemma. I'm going to find the volume of the round cake and the sheet cake. I'll show you the math on the screen.
Wait a minute. Oh my Lord, who put that picture of me up there? That's a horrible picture. I'm going to skin somebody. It looks like I haven't eaten in ages. Okay, now for the round cake, we're going to talk in geometry speak and call it a cylinder. The volume of a cylinder is pi, not like cherry pie, times radius squared times the height. My cylinder pan has a diameter of 9 inches, which would be a 4 1/2 inch radius. Don't confuse the diameter and the radius, y'all. The radius is half the diameter, and the cylinder is 1 3/4 inches in height. But I'm actually going to make this cake with 2 layers. So for my calculation, the height of my cylinder will be doubled, so it will be 3 1/2 inches. Using the equation for the volume of a cylinder, the volume of my 2 pans is 222 cubic inches. Are y'all with me? But I will only fill the pans with batter to 3/4 or 75% full. So 222 cubic inches multiplied by 0.75 is almost 167 cubic inches. Now, cubic inches is all fine and dandy, but remember, Mama Elwood's recipe is for 1 cup of batter, y'all. So now I'm going to have to determine how many cubic inches are in my 1 cup measuring cup so we have the same units of measurement. Make sure you're always working in the same units. My measuring cup cylinder has a diameter of 1.26 inches or a radius of 0.63 inches, and the height is 2.9 inches. I use the same formula for calculating the volume of the measuring cup that I use for the round cake pan. Pi times the radius squared times the height, and I get a volume of 14.45 cubic inches in my measuring cup. Now I can divide the total volume of the batter that I need, which is 166.91 cubic inches, by the volume of the batter per cup, which is 14.45 cubic inches. And that gives me the total number of cups of batter I will need for the 2-layer round butter cake of 11.55 cups. Now we have calculated the volume of a cylinder and converted this volume into cubic inches to cups, y'all. Let's do the same thing for the sheet cake, which we will call a rectangular prism. Our formula for calculating the volume of this shape is length times height times width. My pan is 9 by 9 by 2 inches high, so the volume is 162 cubic inches. Just like we did with the round cake, we will only fill the pan with batter to 75% full. So 162 cubic inches multiplied by 0.75 is 121.5 cubic inches. We already determined that a cup holds 14.45 cubic inches, so we will divide 121.5 cubic inches by 14.45 cubic inches, and we get 8.4 cups of batter. So now we know that we need 11.55 cups of batter for the round cake and 8.4 cups of batter for the sheet cake. Added together, we get 19.95 cups. Let's just call it 20 cups for both of our cakes. So here's Mama Elwood's ingredients and measurements for her small recipe, and we will multiply it by 20 to determine the amount of ingredients we will need for our 2 cakes. And look at all that butter.
And now, let's get started. Thanks to the magic of technology and video editing, we now have our cakes all ready to be iced. But we've run into another little dilemma thanks to Grandma Elwood's frugality. We have to determine the surface area of our cakes, or should I say cylinder and rectangular prism, that will be iced. Let me show you how to work that out on the screen.
We'll start with our round cake, our cylinder. The surface area of the cylinder is 2 pi times the radius squared, which is the area of the top and bottom of the cylinder, plus 2 times pi times the height, which is the area of the sides of the cylinder. Now that's the surface area formula for the whole cylinder. But do we need icing on the bottom of our cake? No. So we will have to modify this formula a little. Instead of multiplying 2 times pi times the radius squared, we will only multiply 1 times pi times the radius squared to determine the area of the top of the cylinder. The second part of our formula that is used to calculate the area of the sides will not be changed. So, using our modified formula, our surface area of the cylinder minus the bottom is 162.49 square inches. Now, Mama Elwood's little recipe for icing only covered 2 muffins. So we calculate the surface area for the top of a muffin, which is more or less a circle, using pi times the radius squared. The radius of a muffin is about 1.25 inches, so our surface area of a muffin top is 4.9 square inches. Since Mama Elwood's icing recipe was for 2 muffins, her icing recipe would only cover 9.8 square inches. But we'll have a lot more than that to cover our cake, which has about 162.5 square inches of surface area. So, by dividing 162.49 square inches by 9.8 square inches, we determined that we need to make 16.58 small batches of icing to cover the round cake. We will do the same with the sheet cake, but we are not going to add a stick of butter. The surface area of a rectangular prism is 2 times the length times width, plus 2 times the length times the height, plus 2 times the width times the height. But just like before, we are not going to ice the bottom of our cake, right? So we will modify our formula again to account for only the top of our cake and the sides of our cake. So, using our modified formula, we determined that we have 153 square inches of cake that will need icing. As we did before, we will divide surface area of the cake by the surface area covered by the icing recipe. So, 153 square inches divided by 9.8 square inches equals 15.61 small batches of icing for the sheet cake. That's pretty darn accurate. Using the recipe, look, we have butter, y'all. We need 16.58 recipe batches of icing for the round cake and 15.61 recipe batches of icing for the sheet cake, which gives us a total of a little more than 32 batches. So we're going to need the amounts of ingredients that are shown here.
Once again, technology and video editing has served us well, but so did that useful geometry that we can use in everyday life. And here's our final product. Doesn't it look good? But you know, old Paula wanted to put her signature touch on this old family recipe. And what else would be more perfect than, you guessed it, butter? Now let me call the grandkids in. Bobby Jr., Jamie Jr., y'all want to eat a little butterlicious cake? There you go. Oh, it looks so good. There you go. How'd that taste? Thank y'all for joining me today, and I hope y'all learned some valuable lessons. So I'm sending y'all love and best dishes from my kitchen to yours. Y'all be good.